Coffee and Pan Dulce. How's that? Coffee and Pan Dulce.
Sounds great.
You sounded like a telenova. I mean,
that's what I'm trying to. All I have to say is go. Yes,
as a non-Spanish speaker.
Hi, good evening. This is Barb Bacon. I'm a community advocate here in South Charlotte. Generally, I drive people around and to doctor's appointments, and I'm getting ready to have my sign-up list for taking people to vote. Buttons, once again, are, I believe in health care for all. I've got some people that don't believe in Medicare for all. Gun violence, let's get some control of guns, and Black Lives Matter in honor of our friend Joel that passed away last year. So that's it, guys.
Hello, this is Jenny-Jaymes Gunn. I am a community advocate here in Charlotte, North Carolina for LGBT women's rights with the National Organization for Women, gun sense laws with Moms to Men Action, and anything that extends equity to all. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Christian Cano. You're the co-host. My buttons are Moms to Men Action, gun sense legislation, healthcare for all, Medicare for all, and also in my heart, Black Lives Matter on behalf of Joe Oldham, who's a guest of ours who passed away last year. That's it.
Good morning, everybody. Another edition of Coffee and Dulce. I almost said the other show's name.
You sure did.
Yeah.
For people that only watch this show, we do another podcast called Conclusion Crowd. And so it almost rolled right out of my mouth because you have a big mouth. But anyway, this is March 1st. So if you are seeing this, we record a week in advance, so we're still in February, but this will drop next Wednesday, of course. So if you're seeing this, we are into March, so the third month of the year already. We've already burned through 2 months. And I don't know about y'all, but I feel like this year has gone by disproportionately faster than the last few years. Yeah. Almost like pre-COVID times in a way. Yeah. And I don't know if it's increased activity that people are just saying, we know it's out there, screw it, we're gonna go live our lives. We'd rather catch COVID than stay in our little caves. But anyway, this is Coffee and Pan Dulce, and with my show partners Christian Cano and Barb Bacon. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Barb. You look very nice today.
Thanks.
Not that you don't normally look nice.
Well, I made an extra effort today.
I we had to edit this out. I just did like the number one thing that guys should never tell
Christian
ladies.
and I have two brothers that are like, forget about it. I don't get offended. I'm the oldest. I don't get offended. So no.
All right. Well, thank you.
No worries.
As Jenny said, welcome everyone to Coffee and Pan Dulce. Welcome to Coffee and Pan Dulce. This is Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts with Jenny Gunn and Barb Bacon. We do want to thank everyone who's joining us on Facebook Live on March the 1st, and also those who join us on YouTube, and the thousands who listen to us on your favorite audio podcast platform. I got to tell you, Jen, I don't know what it is. I've got this love-hate relationship with these MAGA people, or we do, because that are there any good Republican show? They just keep watching it, and we're like 17,000 viewers on that one now. God. Is it crazy? And we've got this new I think maybe he took a Lutheran pastor's place. You know what I'm talking about? This guy that
our new virtual stalker that keeps making comments.
We have one? Oh no!
Yes, we have several.
Our pages are full of it, you know, and it's best not to go read the comments.
Yeah.
I'm going to get to that tomorrow.
If you need, because certain ones we flame back.
We need we need to salute.
Oh, yep. Sorry about that. Yep. That's right, Barb.
I got
let's
my mug up here.
That's right. Let's salute to our neighbors. Thank you, those. And we're going to pause just a sec. Actually, okay, I'm off a little bit. Okay. Jenny, we'll get right back into what you're talking about. Today's topic is America's low unemployment problem. We'll be talking about the actual good thing about having low unemployment, but also what the problems are going to be over the next 5 years because of low unemployment. So we'll talk about that. But before we do that, let's pause a little bit for the introduction for Barb's 3 current events.
And this is Barb's current events.
All right, well, welcome back. Barb's 3 current events. The 3 current events in 30 seconds or less are MTG, our favorite crazy person, one of our favorite crazy persons, said last week on President's Day that she believed our country needs a national divorce. Basically, she's saying we need a civil war. I mean, that's really what she's kind of saying. But now, anyway, so if you want to comment on that one. The second one is last week, the Fulton County District Attorney had to release some of the information about the grand jury. And I'm not really sure how to take it because I've been trying to read. So I don't know if you guys know anything about that. But apparently they expect several indictments. Or that's what the grand jury is kind of saying.
What a shock.
And then the last thing.
Some lied.
Exactly. The last one is I've been reading a lot over the last couple of weeks about fentanyl. Oh. And, we hear about fentanyls being brought over by Mexican cartels, drug dealers. It's coming all from, that's the MAGA MTG kind of talking points, Ted Cruz, all the MAGA people. But everything I'm reading are the people that are being arrested are MAGAs. Here in South Carolina, there was a huge bust of fentanyl, and it was a person who lived in rural, who was making fentanyl. And then also in, I don't know what, I think he lived in Missouri. He was one of the persons who actually got, with January 6th insurrectionists, he was one of the persons who stabbed one of the police officers. And he was busted for distributing a large amount of fentanyl. And before his court date, he committed suicide last week. And
sorry.
Yeah. And so it turns out almost the people that I'm reading are Mexican drug lords being arrested. So maybe they're paying I don't know how you want to take that. So we'll talk about those 3. So let's start with you, Jen, in 30 seconds or less on Barb's current events.
Okay. First of all, this fentanyl thing is there is a pharmaceutical version of fentanyl. It's a very commonly used drug. And Barb can actually speak more to that because she worked in the industry. But this fentanyl problem is a manufactured problem. And it's like with the entire drug war. The drug war is a crock of shit. Yeah. It's a cash grab. It's created all kinds of cottage industries, and it's designed to make the problem worse. Yep. If we really wanted to end drug cartels and really do this like we do other wars, then I don't know, maybe, with the collection of super high-tech weapons that melt the planet off, maybe we should be doing airstrikes on manufacturing facilities. If it's that bad in South America and Central America, why aren't we fighting this with like a war? Why aren't we sending in, the Navy SEALs and the Green Berets, and the airborne and we're sending drones and all this? Why are we helping those countries shut down the source? Because if it's truly coming through the southern border, which it's not, it's one of these things as Senator Daines was so worried about the Mexican meth coming over here and how we need to manufacture our own meth. This is a complete. This isn't a drugs. Drugs aren't the problem. How we're managing the problem is we're using a sledgehammer on a medical problem. And if we treated this like a medical issue and a mental health issue and an overall management of harm, there would be no need for a drug war. There'd be no need for DEA. Is that prohibition didn't work back in the roaring 20s with alcohol, because one thing's consistent with humanity: sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You can't legislate any of that. MTG and the national divorce.
Maybe I can tag team onto you. I think our major problem is who's behind these drugs. Like you mentioned, Christian, that MAGAs are being arrested, killed, whatever. Could that be our problem? It isn't that we want to get rid of it. People are getting wealthy off of it. People here in the United States, that's our problem.
Yeah.
I'm done with that, but it's more and more from what I hear from industry people. If they could figure out where all that money's going, follow the money. Isn't that what they always do in the detective shows on TV? Follow the money, but we don't do that. I wonder why. I'm done.
If people actually address the problem, and we actually talked about why we do prohibition of certain things you can't prohibit, and we actually broke down the critical thinking and the logic, which Americans aren't a big fan of, especially the MAGA side of the ledger, we'd get to the root of the issue and actually address it. And we have it for 50 years.
I agree.
MTG and the national divorce thing, she's been floating this concept out for quite a while. I think
she's a fan of divorce.
She must, she must be cheating on the Democrats, and so she needs a divorce. But honestly, the logistics of doing a non-war actual civil divorce where we just legally said, you take this part, we take this part, honestly has been floated for a long time, ever since the NAFTA days, when many people have said, we're probably going to go to some kind of EU standard like the European Union and see a bunch of the Americas, Canada, Mexico, United States going on some kind of, cooperative of some type. And I do see a logic to doing something like that. A national divorce.
Texas.
Well, a national divorce for me, honestly, would do blue states way more good than the red states.
Exactly. I'm like, that's fine.
And more states are all red states. The 10 richest states are all blue states.
Yep.
And we talked about this on the other show, but the 477 wealthiest counties in the United States, all of them were won by Biden, and all of them produce 71% of our gross domestic product. The 2,400 then other counties only produce 29%. We literally carry 80% of the red counties on our backs. And it's because Democrats just do everything better. And I can't remember what the third subject was.
Fulton County DA released their some of the information.
This is an ongoing thing. Trump's under investigation in 29 different courts and jurisdictions. This is a long-term process. I mean, even after he catches a conviction on one of the many investigations or civil suits, he's going to spend the majority of his last days probably in courtrooms and in jail cells. And it's one of those things. This guy's operated outside of the law for his entire life. He's pushed the level of ethics and decency. His dad did the same thing.
Mhm.
They were both crooks.
He went to jail. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so we know that this is a long, like the MAGAs are thinking that he's not going to catch an indictment off this thing in Fulton County, Georgia. But honestly, he doesn't. Even if they say, well, he skirts this one, there's so much up against him. And between now and the primary, there's a good chance he's not going to be in the primary next year.
Don't you think MAGAs are feeding that?
And he's in big trouble. And even the Republican Party is going to dump all their money on DeSantis. But they already have. They've already said he's our guy. He is going to be their nominee most likely, unless something really crazy, like if they Madison Cawthorn him and come up with some really racy pictures or videos, which is possible because DeSantis is creepy. We've already seen the high school party things that he went to as a teacher.
I think, yeah.
There's no
team up with that Supreme Court justice, that we had all those.
Oh, Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah, Kavanaugh.
Oh, yeah. Well, they seem very similar. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. Yep.
I don't think I wouldn't be surprised if the Trump campaign, if Trump is not in jail by then.
Hasn't dug something up.
If he's still, I have no doubt they're going to drop a bomb on DeSantis anyway. But I think they're not going to drop the big ones until the primaries have already started. Like they're going to probably
drip. Yeah, they're going to do the Madison Cawthorn strategy. Drip.
And I think right before, like a few weeks before the lead up to, Super Tuesday, I think they're going to go nuclear with DeSantis. They're going to, all the nasty videos and all the real incriminating videos are just going to come out. And you're going to see the Republican Party just melt down. Yeah. Because this, Trump is a scorched earth kind of guy. Like he's not a Republican. No. He just ran as a Republican because the Republican Party's dumb enough to fall for his BS, and they needed a willing stooge to run for president because they knew he would do anything to acquire power and money.
Yep.
Good points. Barb, you want to comment on any of those three?
Okay. I'm going to say that I've said what I want to say about fentanyl. I have a personal interest in fentanyl. My sister had MS and had a problem with fentanyl, so I don't want to go there. But MTG, I can't stand her, but interesting concept. Let's maybe they should just feed that fire and see what happens. Maybe her head would explode or something.
Maybe we should call their bluff.
I really don't like her, but they're all just trying to be mini Trumps, creating the noise all the time, and I find that disgusting. But this Georgia thing, I really want to know who lied. I know they can't say, but a couple friends of mine that live in Georgia are like, well, we know who we want it to be. So we're thinking some senator from South Carolina, and, but I guess my overall problem with all of this is, what are the Republicans doing? I don't even watch news anymore because it's just like, am I in the Twilight Zone? I turn on Star Trek now. It's like, I
never took you as a Star Trek person.
Oh, I am. I'm a Trekkie big time. It just really nauseates Art, but I can't stand it.
Oh my goodness.
They killed Jean-Luc Picard. How could they do that? Anyway, but they're such an embarrassment. Even my one neighbor that is a super Republican, I made some shot the other day about it, and he just, I don't even want to talk about it. So you aren't enjoying it less, are you? It's like, I don't know. Yeah. It's scary, but let's hope the Democrats do super deep dives the way they didn't do against Santos. Whoever ran against him, major league screwed up. because maybe we wouldn't be in a situation in Congress that we are. But I agree. Let's hope there's like major bombs dropping when this whole thing. Nikki Haley jumping in is very interesting.
Yeah.
But why?
Yeah.
Nobody knows who she is beyond this region. I mean,
yeah, she needed to do something.
Yeah, well, she thought she was a big name because she was ambassador and everything. I don't know.
Yeah, people are like,
it's like you said, Christian, let's get out the popcorn and sit back and watch, because I agree with Jenny. There's going to be some major explosions, and I don't think they can handle it. They're going to have such a fractured party that's why I sit here as an independent and go, blow yourselves up. Let's see. Let God sort it out, and I never say
that's right.
But my Catholic comes out every once in a while,
Well, hey, speaking of Catholic,
if
you're watching this on March the 1st, Happy Lent.
Happy Lent.
We're actually taping this show on Ash Wednesday. So Happy Lent. Yesterday was my holiday, Fat Tuesday. All right. With that said, we're going to take our first break. We'll be right back. Yeah, we'll be right back on Coffee Pan Dulce right after this.
Hey, y'all, the holidays are coming up, and what better way to celebrate locally than with Manolo's Bakery's fine goods and services. They have amazing chocolate cakes is what they're known for. Tres Leches cakes, tamales. Get your tamales orders in early, especially if you're going to order for Thanksgiving, because they sell out fast. But they have an amazing bakery and restaurant there on the east side of Charlotte, and you're missing out. Plus, you should support your Black and brown businesses and shop local and shop small to really keep the economy going. Thanks for watching, and shop with Manolo's this year.
Well, welcome back. Thank all of y'all for the three current events. The MTG divorce is just loony. You would think shows you how I don't know. I'm preaching to the choir here. But just 5 years ago, if anyone who was an elected congressional member or a senator had ever said that we need a national divorce, which is basically we need, there would be a censor or something in Congress against them.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're the only people that are outraged right now are your typical, Liz Cheney or the moderate Republicans, but there's a lot of them. A couple of governors, Republican governors, have spoken out against what she said. But it's just crazy. The Fulton County DA, I've been trying to read what they released, and it's enough to let people know that people are going to get indicted. It doesn't list the people. I know that the foreperson, which was a lady, she did an interview with NBC and also the AP, and she basically talked that there will be some indictments, but she can't say it because it's against the rules of the. And basically, she said that people who are going to be indicted would not surprise you. So basically, she's telling us, I think, in her own way, the people that you think are going to be indicted are the people that there aren't going to be any surprises, she said.
The big team, hopefully.
That's she can't say anything else because she doesn't. They can recommend indictments. It depends on whether I don't know exactly how that works. But they asked her if she was a member of a political party. She says she is independent. She said, but if she were to register for a political party, it wouldn't be the crazy party. Wasn't that great? I like that one.
But where are the moderate Republicans? They all have their big mouths shut. That is the worst thing they could do.
Jenny's been talking about this the last couple of years since Trump.
Yep.
About how their silence has been even worse.
Definitely.
Exactly. I think their strategy has been, we're just going to sit back and ride it out because eventually this will pass. And people have such short-term memories, they will forget that we didn't stand up when they were speaking against this person. Speaking against, you mean? And that's the impression I have got. I don't know because I don't really talk to that many Republicans anymore other than some family members, and we're not allowed to kind of talk about that because I think they're ashamed. So it's like,
I know my one cousin is. He's
yeah, but the fentanyl thing to me is Jenny had said and everyone had said, is really this really bizarre thing, because the people that I know, and I've met some individuals, they seem, and you can correct me, and I don't know, because I don't know a lot about this. The people who are on fentanyl tend to be the people who are with the opioid crisis. They tend to be more whiter.
Yes.
And as a result of it, I'm not suggesting it's a worse or better or worse epidemic, but what I'm suggesting is the people that are causing the fentanyl crisis, like the opioid crisis, are white people, which would be MAGAs.
Yep.
So if you don't want a fentanyl crisis, don't do fentanyl. Is that too simplistic?
No,
because I know drugs is, if you're addicted to drugs, you're addicted to drugs, right?
So one of the issues is, because we have a lot of prescription drugs that are addictive when you get into the narcotics realm, is that we've never managed that kind of stuff right. And because we don't practice in general, there's no existing gateway of harm reduction. You're either a medical patient and it's okay because you have stage 4 bone cancer and it's extremely painful, or if you've got a sports injury and they give you some type of opioid or something like that, and you do get a codependency on that opioid-based drug, there's not really a program that will really manage, getting people off that per se. And it's just, a lot of it's just cold turkey. The problem is that if you've gotten used to that opioid medication, that usually turns into heroin. They'll pour it over, because people will, just like in Jurassic Park, and I say this all the time, nature will find a way.
Sure.
And humans are just like the dinosaurs in that movie. They'll keep testing that electric fence till they find a way around the electric fence.
Yeah.
And this is why drug prohibition, just like alcohol prohibition, does not work. If you won't let us buy alcohol in a store legally, we'll go set up a still. We'll go make bathtubs. We'll go. Nature will find a way. They create speakeasies, which then also, because it is, in the criminal penal code, and it's not a civil offense, then you get law enforcement involved, and then your black market gets developed. Your people that want to make a criminal or organized crime syndicate based on that, and that's why therein lies a problem. You created a cottage industry to fill the need. There's a demand here. And so a true drug war, if you really want to commit to a drug war, has to be fought on two fronts. The supply side and the demand side, because it's basic economics. Drug dealers, domestic or foreign, wouldn't be doing all these high risks if there wasn't a payoff. You don't invest all this money into guns and drug mules and systems, and now they have submarines and then I'm just talking about the foreign ones, and the domestic ones the same way. Anybody that's watched Breaking Bad or any of the other TV shows about the meth making industry, which I lived in the part of the world that made the most meth in the United States, southwestern Missouri, which literally the area code of my phone is 417, and the meth's nickname is the 417. There is a reason, and a very Republican, like 98% Republican of the world, very conservative, very churchy. I'd also, they love those drugs, and they don't discriminate. Well, that isn't the only one that they really love, and there's no judgment. We got to treat drug dependency, drug use, as a legit medical issue.
Yes.
And legalize it, decriminalize all drugs. It doesn't matter what it is, and handle it the right way, which is harm reduction. And because there's so much that can go wrong by pushing people in the shadows and forcing them to self-medicate, because I've lost family members to addiction. I hate this subject, but it also is a necessary subject that we have to talk about as a nation and say, what's the common sense thing to do? How do we lower demand? We lower demand by creating harm reduction problems. We manage the people that have a genetic propensity to do this and treating them like trash, like disposable, things, like broken things. And talk about addiction as something that is a legit medical problem. Like, you wouldn't shame somebody because they got brain cancer. Yeah. Addiction and misuse of drugs is not a deviant thing. It's not a immoral thing. It's body chemistry, it's genetics, and quite frankly, the medical industry and the legal industry are kind of complicit in it, and they mismanaged it for a long, long time.
Well, let's take Betty Ford. I thought maybe a president's wife making a big deal and setting up a whole institution. I was hoping that would be a national thing. And still being in the pharmaceutical industry, then I thought finally they're going to address this addiction thing, both behind the scenes and happening through doctors and just no follow-up. Pain management means managing it from beginning to end. And they stop after they administer, and all those people are lost. That's why we have a problem. And I have a couple of friends that were trying to do that for a while, and we could never figure out why. This could be a huge moneymaker. Set up clinics and big institutions. Why isn't that happening? The money's going somewhere else, and those people don't want it to stop because it's annoying. And I've lost a family member to this, and it infuriates me. So,
I think, Barb and Jen, I think we're seeing early signs of capitalism actually working to our advantage, because we didn't talk about treatment of crackheads. We talked about locking them away. But when the opioid crisis happened and when the fentanyl, now we have suburban white women talking about we need treatment for these people. And the reason is because there's money in treating people.
If their kids take one dose,
that's what it's happening.
They die because it's
that's what's happening.
Powerful.
It's so potent.
And if that's what has to happen, just like AIDS, until white people started to get it and rich people, nothing happened. And you know what?
Well,
I can't help it, but it just, and I was on my high horse when I moved here about the opioid crisis. I talked to a couple of senators and congressmen through Ed. That didn't help. They're like, okay. Where's the money going? Our elected officials, maybe?
Jen, you want to say something before our second break?
Well, again, it's a problem that is spiraled out of control and made worse by the very poor drug policy and drug enforcement policies. The DEA is an absolute waste of money.
And you know what? Excuse me, but you know why the DEA is a waste? Because one senator in Pennsylvania changed the DEA rules, and I was still in the industry then, and we're like, what happened? There was no way for us to monitor suspicious shipments anymore, and that senator in Pennsylvania didn't run the next time because the industry was going after him, and then all of a sudden the industry stopped. Well, excuse me, but something happened. And they are worthless because they don't have the information they need to monitor it the way it was before. I was responsible for reporting narcotics to the DEA every month. I could have gone to jail if my department didn't do what it was supposed to do. That's all gone. One stinking senator changed the whole. I think that's when Obama was in president then. And I'm like, what happened? So I don't know, but it's corrupt, super corrupt, terrible.
Well, let's take our second break, and then we'll come back, and we'll let you finish, Jen, and then we'll go into our topic, America's low unemployment. As usual, we'll actually get into our topic. We'll be right back on Coffee.
For me to exit.
Yep. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching our Coffee Pan Dulce Show every week. Don't forget, you can watch us visually on our video podcast platforms on Facebook and YouTube, but you can also listen to us on your favorite audio podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and all of the other ones that your favorite, well, whatever your favorite is. Once again, thank you for watching us on Coffee Pan Dulce. We'll dance out. We are back. Welcome, everyone, to Coffee Pan Dulce. And Barbara had to go to deal with some family events. So it's just you and me, Jen, to carry the rest of the show. As usual, just you and me. Kind of what Barb was talking about. Jenny, this is, sometimes this is probably going to come back and haunt me, what I'm going to say here. So we'll figure out if you'll remember this 2 years from now. One of the reasons why I believe this anti-woke crusade that DeSantis and a lot of the Christian nationalists and MAGAs, one of the reasons why I am against it, not only is because it's crazy, is because as a Catholic, as a person who grew up Catholic, I know, and I wish Barbara was still here so we could talk about this, when you suppress someone, they come out wilder. As someone who grew up in Texas with a lot of Southern Baptists, and I was mild as a Catholic, the Southern Baptists were the biggest hypocrites. They would go out and smoke pot and do all kinds of sex, drugs, and rock and roll on Saturday, and then talk about how you're going to hell on Sunday.
Yeah.
And so I grew up with that. And I know today the Southern Baptists that I grew up with, the crazy, wild people, are now all born again Christians like you and I talked about on your show that's going to be after this one. So I know when you suppress people, they come out crazier. And with DeSantis and the Moms for Liberty's attempt to suppress people, to ban books, it doesn't hurt people who are balanced and healthy. They come out okay. It's the ones that have been suppressed that come out crazier on the end. So 10 years from now, we're going to have crazier Marjorie Taylor Greens.
Well, this is the thing. So extreme measures, extreme suppression. And you'll see this. You look at Iran, for example, where these younger generations that are now protesting, what has happened to women over the last decades since the Iranian Revolution in the 1970s, is you see this big swing towards, this holier than thou, I'm better than everybody else type movement. And when you see these massive swings, these generational swings, you will see a lot of rational people going, well, that seems a little much. Wow, this escalated way faster. It's one of the reasons I'm not a big fan of civil wars and revolutions, is because honestly, the intention of the revolution is to make the kingdom or the country better. It almost never turns out that way. And there's usually a massive reign of terror afterwards, especially if the authoritarian figures win, and you get a lot of problems, you get a lot of push. And even our Civil War didn't fix our problem in inequity. It just changed the legal status from slave to free-ish person. But honestly, people of color didn't see any kind of real relief until the 1960s, and only really on a legal term, because the suppression was still there. They just disguised it in other things. They did a ton of work around it. We were still fighting. There were certain states still fighting segregation laws and desegregation laws up until the 1990s. There were still court hearings from the 60s to the 1990s. We still had 30 years of resistance. And so these things, once you suppress the people, like former African slaves, and you see what Black people have gone through for literally 400 years in this country, even before we were an actual country. You see something like that, because Great Britain is going through it too, is that we're not the only white European-based country that has, because white European people there's a lot of bigotry. there's a lot of hate, a lot of distrust for people of color, because you look at what they did in countries that were predominantly people of color, whether it was Central America, whether it was Africa, whether it was Asia. There was so much exploitation and colonizing mentality.
Well, and that's
and
that's what's so dangerous. Yeah,
and you even see that play out in drug policy or employment policy, like our subject today being the unemployment is so low. One of the reasons Republicans are so upset that unemployment is so low is that when unemployment goes so low, it drives up wages.
Yes.
And it's gone up, but the wages have gone up for a couple of years. Because again, it's supply and demand. There's a low amount of wages.
Well, hey, let's jump into that.
And again, it's really based on racism.
Yeah.
Because who is getting helped by this is predominantly minorities, people of color, even queer people, because they're seeing, a lot of them are in the service industry, which has seen a lot of unionization now. We've seen over 200 Starbucks stores get unionized. We're seeing Amazon warehouses getting unionized. Is that people in the organized labor industry are saying, we know we got them. We know they got to hire people. It's hard to hire people when unemployment's around historic low, like 3%, 2%.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is time for the. You always hear the saying, it's a blacksmith saying, strike when the fire is hot. And right now the labor market is hot. It is on fire. And so Republicans and conservatives and very wealthy people want to pay labor as low as humanly possible. You worked in the hospitality, and there is a very compelling case for organized labor and unions and making a union comeback for the middle class.
And I think that's what's going. I mean, that's basically what's going to happen. Let's jump into our topic, because we only have about 20 minutes left on our show. But it's been great conversation. America's low unemployment problem. As of right now, America's unemployment is standing around 3.4%. It is the lowest since 1969. You don't hear a lot of Republicans talking about that right now, because they want to talk about. That's why they're talking about groomers and drag queens is to change.
The reason I want to talk about you don't want. Well, how do you make the case for low unemployment being bad? What's the
exactly?
Unless the only way you're going to either sound stupid or you're going to sound greedy or bought off, because the if employment stayed high, unemployment stayed high through the first 2 years of the Biden administration, you'd hear the Republicans talking about it. But because it's historically low, because of the CHIPS Act, because of the Infrastructure Act that's created more jobs, it's going to create more jobs in 2024, we have a labor problem really for two reasons. One, low birth rates. We've had low birth rates, even though the youngest two adult generations, the millennials and the baby Zs, are the biggest generations we've had in a long, long time. You still have the Generation X, which was an extraordinarily small generation, and when you have that, because we're almost at the top edge of the employable years, the prime employer years. So we're the oldest of us are close to or thinking about retiring or retiring early. just now.
Yeah.
And so and because there's so few of us, higher management jobs are coming to the millennial generation that's now getting into the low 40s. They're going, oh crap, there's so many of them. But when you start pulling them up and promoting them a little earlier than a normal career track, you're pulling people out of the labor market. You're pulling do the lower end job. And because we've also tried to stifle immigration so much. So the second part to this is historically we are fighting immigration so much, no matter which country they come from. And Canada's going through this too. So Canada is struggling just as much as we are. But Canada actually did something about it. So they increased the allowable new arrivals up by like 300,000 people about 2 years ago. They said per year for a while, we're going to let about 300,000 more immigrants on top of what they usually allow to come into Canada and apply for citizenship and things of that nature. We're doing the opposite. We're saying, hold my beer, fuck it. Let's, we don't want any people of color come in our country, whether they come from India or Mexico or wherever. We're going to fight this tooth and nail because we're a bunch of racist, homophobic bigots. And so we've always relied on foreign labor, immigrants. And now that we're going to increase manufacturing just in the silicon alone and the green energy technology too, that's in the Infrastructure Act, if we increase manufacturing without a reliable growing labor pool, that's going to get lower. It's going to, you're going to see below 3% in the next couple of years.
Well, and that's what's that's kind of the problem we're going to have, don't you think, in the next couple of at least the next decade with the low unemployment is exactly what you're kind of talking about. But before we kind of finish talking about this, let's take our last break. We only have about 17 minutes left. We're going to take, if you like what you're hearing from Jenny, she does have a show that follows this show at 11:30 on Wednesdays Eastern time, real time. It's called Two Queers in a Truck. And this last commercial will talk about her show. We'll be right back.
Up next is Two Queers in a Truck with Jenny and Christian. And hope you guys tune in. We'll see you in about 15 to 20 minutes. Thank you. Bye.
Real time. I like telling my family real time. They're like, Texas? No, real time.
Real time.
All right, exactly. Well, welcome back, y'all. So America's low unemployment problem. Jenny, you are describing this exactly. You've taken all my notes. So
I've read a lot about this.
Yeah.
And I also read about a lot of major countries, and Europe went through this. China is going through this worse than we are. Japan did so many population limiting measures, and especially in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, and all the way up, I guess, through the early 2000s. And they put such a restrictor plate on birth rates. And it's now, Japan and China have one of the oldest median ages on the planet. So you see a lot of senior citizens doing jobs that typically in this country are done by young people that need after school jobs, and them because they just don't have any, 16 to 30-year-olds. And so they've gotten caught in this really weird, in fact, their average age of a citizen is kind of be around the 50-year-old mark in about 2 more decades. They have very aging, very geriatric populations, are very top heavy with baby boomers, post World War II boomers in China, for example, and they don't have much in between except for the newest baby boom. And so China's in this weird, and they're going to be this way for 2 or 3 decades. In fact, that's why China's allowed in a lot of foreign labor. There's a lot of Americans that work in China. There's a lot of Russians that work in China. They've recruited all over the world because they're in the same situation we're in, but they're actually worse. And so it's a phenomenon as our planet's population's burgeoned.
Mhm.
It's not burgeoned evenly.
Yeah. Well,
this is we've done a bad job managing the
Yeah.
drug war,
Mhm.
the population tug of war in societies, and especially high wealth societies like
Mhm.
China, Japan, and the United States are all
Sure.
high nations, and we've all dropped the ball. All three nations, three of the big empires in the world. So,
well, I mean, but that explains why. I mean, if you really kind of think about it, that explains why a lot of the people who live in Texas, many of them Tejanos, like myself, a lot of people in Arizona, maybe even in some of the southern states, are so focused on the southern border because A, they need to blame someone for their crappy lives, so they want to blame other people. But the second thing is, there's only a few ways in those states, like let's just use Texas for example. There's only a few ways that you can raise your income and your cost standard of living in Texas. The ways are marry well, move more to a suburban, a country place. You can get more land for your money because you can't afford to live in Dallas. You can live out in, more of a smaller city or so forth. But also restrict your competition so that way your salaries may go up. And so there's a lot of people who are more, I would say, blue collar kind of workers who want the immigration to kind of slow down or stop so that way their competition is less, which I understand that's how you get your minimum, that's how you get the fight for 15 that we thought was impossible. Now it's like, oh, they're talking about 16, 17 now, And so one of the things, but the problem with that also is you're going to now start to see Koch brothers, libertarians, elite Democrats, who are saying, hold on a second, these wages are going too high. We need to come up with an immigration bill, which is why you're seeing for the first time in 10 years, the Republican congressman from South Texas and a Democratic congressman from South Texas are trying to work together for an immigration bill, not because they care about immigrants, but because they're afraid that the salaries are starting to go up too high. So, I'm not sure if I'm sad or if I'm happy. You know what I mean? I want the salaries to go high for people.
Well, a baseline of humanity. So,
sure.
One of the dirty secrets with this war on the middle class and people in poverty is that you've got a lot of politicians, mostly Republican, that are they're anti-socialism, they're anti-helping common people, so there's nothing in it for them. Let's just say it what it really is.
They want socialism for them.
Yeah, well, and that's the second part to what I was going to say is, they don't want socialism for me; they want it for thee, and exactly. They love big government contracts. You don't see them turning down. Like you don't see Elon Musk.
That's socialism.
Anti-socialism. Exactly. It's all these big rocket contracts and all these carbon credits from the government to actually allow his shitty car company to make a profit because it doesn't on car sales. That's a dirty secret. And so the actual job is socialism. And all these billionaires, a lot of them have made it off social policies and socialism, like Walmart paying such a shitty wage that you immediately,
if
you're a baseline worker for Walmart, you automatically will qualify for all subsidies.
Exactly.
So they love these big companies like a certain amount of socialism if it's in their favor. The problem is there's certain programs that are not in their favor. And if it causes any kind of independence at all, like national health care, like a national way to pay for health care, they're not in favor of that. They want these big companies that can afford to pay for benefits, they don't want their employees to go and start a small business because there is no national guarantee on health care, and they don't want to feel that independence or go to work for a small startup. They don't want that type of thing. They don't want that kind of portability, for example. And this is why they want to suppress wages as much as they humanly can. They definitely don't want any kind of universal wage, subsidy. Like, they don't want any kind of UBI or universal basic income, because they believe in their very feeble brains that a universal basic income will create an independence from their companies, when in reality, it'll create a bigger labor pool, because people won't have to work second and third jobs if they have a UBI. You actually create a looser labor market. You actually create a better labor market, and actually allow people to go back and get better skill sets, which will ultimately create a better labor market as we move into a high-tech age. And it keeps it, when you suppress wages, you suppress the humanity and make it so hard to get an education, so hard to develop your skills, because you're having to work 3 jobs to survive. What you do is that you put us back in the Stone Age. You put us back into one of the reasons a lot of manufacturing isn't here anymore is because we don't have enough high-tech skilled workers to work in these manufacturing plants. We're having to ship that over to Japan, ship that over to China, ship that over there. In part and parcel is because our skill set is either college educated people in this country now, or people that have to start in easy to onboard entry level work. And so we don't have that in between anymore. We don't have that, the middle class, the union type employees that worked in big manufacturing, that's disappeared. So that class of people disappeared. And now that we're trying to restart these industries, one of the fears is, and this is just a real economic fear, is if we build all these chip plants and high-tech plants and all this type of stuff, who's going to work there? You can create manufacturing right now nationally has 150,000 job openings that they can't fill. And because we've done this huge gap from the 1970s to the 2020s, where we've crushed those industries so much because of Reagan and Bush, that
are you saying that kind of like I said, I'm kind of like mixed. I'm not sure if I'm happy or if I'm sad about low unemployment. Well, low
unemployment is a good bad thing, because again, just like the drug war and drug prohibition, we're not addressing the fundamental problems in this country, because we don't like to talk about that. And just like growing up in Texas, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about homosexual sex. We don't. We want to act like homosexuals don't even exist.
Exactly.
We don't.
Even though I became a homosexual in Texas.
Yes.
I was born a homosexual in Texas. I won't say became a homosexual. You know what I mean.
Out there.
And
our truth, and this is the United States' history, is that we allow problems to fester. We don't want to talk about it till we have to. And this is one of the reasons why even Republicans are talking about fentanyl now, even though their drug policies are the ones that led to this fentanyl crisis. But they don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about and try to blame Democrats. We had 55,000 people OD. And the last year Trump was in office, which was 2020. Fentanyl overdoses, there was 55,000 people that OD'd on fentanyl in 2020. The same way with this employment dichotomy that we're in right now. Damned if we do, damned if we don't. It is a problem, and it is a opportunity. And
yes, exactly.
We have to look at our unemployment and economic policies not through a Democrat or Republican lens, but if we address the problems like we should, like when we finally do address a problem, like Germany and Japan stomping all over the world and killing people and rounding them up and putting them in death camps, we finally address the problem once the problem came to our door where we couldn't ignore it. We knew there was a problem there for a long time, but we buried our head in the sand. In fact, we probably made up money off it. Pearl Harbor happened and we couldn't ignore it anymore. And it's just like now the deaths of fentanyl users has gone up so much. When you're talking about 55,000 people, that's more than the gun deaths in 2020. It's more than many other types of mortality. You can't hide it anymore. When you're talking about total overdoses, the number went to over 100,000 people in 2020. 100,000 people OD'd on some type of drug, whether it was pharmaceutical or street drugs. So the number is so high because people needed to self-medicate themselves in 2020 more than usual.
And it seems to be, and I know this is not scientific because I don't know they would even do this. It seems to be more MAGA people.
Yeah, more conservative area, more.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's the dirty little secret of they've always said it was always inner city people of color and crack epidemic, which crack actually is just cocaine. It's just the way it's smoked that got the name crack, but it's actually cocaine for poor people. And so they tried to make these
it's dollar store cocaine.
Big Democrat, the big Democrat cities. They tried to just sound like a Democrat problem. We're liberal Democrats trying to make the local drug laws so liberal that every black person smoking. It's rooted in racism. The truth is that the drug overdose problem and the drug misuse problem is universal. People feel pain in all walks of life, all ethnicities. And if you live in a rural area, you're probably going to be poor. More people,
and you're going to self-medicate more. Yeah.
And with self-medication, with poverty comes a lower critical thinking skills because you're in survival mode all the time. You're in survival mode all the time. You want to make the pain go away. And the easiest way to make pain go away is to be able to take certain kinds of drugs to where you won't feel any pain at all, mental or physical. And opioids and fentanyl will do that. They're very effective drugs. Fentanyl is used a lot in surgical situations and critical care situations. It's a very popular drug in the medical industry. We can debate whether they should or shouldn't, but the reality is it's used a lot in legal medical situations. It's a pharmaceutical drug too. Just like opioids are, a derivation of, they're kissing cousins to heroin. Like it's the same, derived from the same plant.
I think it's just stronger, right? It's like 5 times, 20 times stronger or something. Yeah,
it's pharmaceutical grade. Now, especially the opioid-based drugs are very powerful, they're very effective, and they do their job. But the problem is, and Barbara touched on it too before she left, is the management of it. Again, we don't like to manage things and address things till they become an out of control problem. And just like we watched Germany stomp all over Europe from the mid 1930s on, we didn't even address it. We act like, oh, it's their problem, it's their problem, it's their problem. But it became our problem. And until things affect Americans directly, part of the problem is our natural programming that we live in our little American exceptionalism island until we don't.
That's, that's why Jenny, and I know we've run out of time and we got to wrap this up. That's why this anti-woke movement from DeSantis, this NTG rhetoric about Christian nationalism, this banning books, all that kind of stuff, I am outraged because I hate crazy stuff. But inside me, I know that those people, the children of the Moms for Liberty people, are the ones who are basically going to be wilder when they come up, and our children are going to be more able to adjust and compete. So there's almost this secret, almost like, when we had all the COVID deaths that were happening more with Republicans and MAGAs, I'm sad because I'm pro-life, but there was also part of me was going, all right.
Did it to
You
yourself.
know what I mean? And so, yeah. And so I'm almost like, you know what? If you want to ban books, you want to tell your kids drag queens make them gay and this, you do what you got to do for your family. Because when your child finds out they're gay, they're going to take it out on you.
Well, and you can look at, Texas, for example.
Yeah.
That violence and violent crimes have gone way up in the last decade. And it's part and parcel because of really poor state management under 25, 26 years of Republican control. And would you had a control of a state as big as Texas and as populated as Texas is, and you've done a really piss poor job with one-party control, and especially a problematic party like the Republican Party, since there's no adults in the Texas Republican Party, and there hasn't been for a long, long time, since 1995, is that you see all these very childish, immature conversations in the legislature where these people are experts on nothing. They're the party of idiocy. And you're seeing it play out in Florida now. You're seeing play out in Florida what Texas is going through. Yeah. And the fact that their attempt to completely privatize all Florida public schools from probably from the pre-K level all the way up to the university level. That you're going to have an elementary school sponsored by places that sell cheeseburgers and Jesus Chicken and Amway and all this, is that the people behind this they're using it as a money grab. So all these top woke acts and stop the drag queen legislation people and all, these are all distractions to normalize.
Well, and they're
governmental entities and take public money and use it with private companies. Yeah, and because they're saying that they're trying to make the long-term case that's the solution. Is that if we have privatized schools, they'll have standards, which their standards is they'll ban all queer kids, they'll ban all special needs kids because they won't have the program. And this is normalize a overbearing, basically theocratic revolution.
But you know what it. Yeah, hey Jenny, you know what it highlights, and I've realized this when we were in Florida a couple of weekends ago, on the news and of the papers that I was reading in South Florida, and also what I'm hearing in Texas from my family. The elected officials in those states are bragging about their growth. People are moving. They're moving to Texas, moving to Florida. They're leaving the woke states because where we're woke dies, yada, 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 yada. They're saying this stuff to calm down their more blue collar populace because they're angry. They hate the growth. They hate the fact that congestion is coming in, that people are taking their jobs, that this is happening because they're not seeing the same benefits that we're seeing in blue states.
But we're also, let's be truthful for a second. Those states aren't growing as fast as they used to.
No, they're not.
And in some cases, not at all. Texas is struggling economically. And the dirty little secret is in some of their neighbors in the Republican South are doing really, really bad. Yeah. And they're having very damaging issues because states like California are outgrowing them, but egregious still. But that was so. The biggest thing is they've created a monster of a problem, but because they've lied so long, it's like the boy that called Wolf. Yeah, and the Wolf finally showed up. He ate his ass because you got a party of leopards eating their own faces off.
Well, that's the impression. That's the impression I got when I was in Florida, and what I hear from Texas is the impression I got is the people that live in those states don't like what's happening. The people in California who are losing some people from LA, they're like, That's fine. We're happy. If you want to leave, leave. And the people from Texas and Florida are like, I don't want people to move here because they're getting more blue collar growth, which blue states are getting more white collar growth. So it's a different type of growth. You know what I mean? And so there's more competition between them than there is in blue states.
Blue states typically are winning on a lot of levels because large companies even put manufacturing jobs, which are really high-tech blue-collar jobs.
Yes.
One, because a state like Texas and Florida that suppressed education for so long don't have the skill, don't have the labor pool to bring these plants anymore. And that's what the truth is. And whether the Republicans admit that they've trashed the school system, training system, and overall just destroyed their own internal infrastructure. In Texas case, they can't put many more large commercial entities because of the energy problems they have.
Yes, and they lack a lot of groundwater. Yeah,
we don't want out of state or international stuff coming here anymore. But they're not going to say because we fucked up our state. They're going to say because of wokeism, we want to stop big national, international companies coming here and bringing in all their liberal, good economic policy. We want to keep the homosexuals and the people of color and deadbeats from South America and Central America from wanting to come here. We want to make it so unlivable, dystopian hell. We keep all them undesirables out. So a bunch of
motto,
trailer trash here.
The motto for Florida needs to be, we're out of time. The motto for Florida needs to be when DeSantis says, where woke comes to die. No, you're where we send people that we don't like to die. yeah.
Based on their COVID policy alone. But
exactly.
That's why Florida is short 55,000 teachers is because nobody with a teaching degree that has an ounce of brains is going to want to teach in Florida now.
Yeah.
Who would want to do that? Even if you graduate from the University of Georgia or a neighboring state or whatever, you go, yeah, they're great. It's got great weather in Florida, but if you pick a teaching career,
they're crazy.
There's so many restrictions and so many things. They're now firing teachers that post on their social media.
Yeah, I saw that
about empty libraries, including in-class libraries. They don't want to publish that. They don't want that seen, and it's a chaotic, crazy shift in these statewide policies that are going to ultimately, anybody rational is going to fight tooth and nail to get moved to Florida, which is ultimately going to hurt the big employers there. And to a certain extent, DeSantis wants that. The Republican Party there wants that because they don't want big companies in there dictating policy at all or pushing as they can. And, and so the ultimate end game is to suppress the population to the point to where they basically can do whatever they want.
Well, the good news is that, I do think that I think they've gone too far, and I know they've been going too far, and I'm kind of like peeking because I know they've gone so far that the middle people, even moderate Republicans, are saying, that's crazy.
Yeah. It's gotten to the point to where, but in some cases, like Florida, it may be too late.
I think it's too late now. I agree with you.
I think they're going to totally crater their economy, totally crater their state, privatize their schools, and probably raise 5 or 10 years worth of really dumb kids. Like they'll create a bunch of MTGs down there.
I can't imagine.
It's going to be crazy.
We ran out of time. We've actually gone way over. So thank you. Thank you for staying over. And I did want to say thank you, Barbara, for the time she was able to join us, our other co-host. And I did have to do a shout out because you didn't hear from him, but you saw him. Employment St. Bernie has been listening to this. He's very happy about the low unemployment because he's been a fight for 15 person. Now he's probably a fight for 20. And then, of course, Welfare Queen MAGA, Baby Trump Pinata, doesn't know what to think about this unemployment because, I don't know, something. So let's go around the Brady Bunch screen. The first weekend in March, Jenny, what are you going to be doing? Or where are you going to be?
I have my gaming event on Saturday, March 4th. So that if you're seeing this right now in the local Charlotte area, it's only about 3 days away. So other than that, of course, International Women's Day is on March 8th. I know I will be participating in something that day. Haven't figured out what. That's too far away. But I know I'll probably get invited to several events like I always do. And so, yeah, there's that.
Wow. Excellent. Did you know that the International Women's Day event was the last big event that I went to? And I can't remember if you were there on that time.
Yeah, we went together.
Was at International House. Yeah, International House before the COVID shutdown.
It really was.
That was the last big event.
That happened on March 8th, but remember, compared to the crowd the year before, like it was really low attended. Like people were already very COVID conscious. I mean, the last two big things I did was work the polls on March
the work
3rd.
The polls. That's right. During the primaries. Yeah, that's
during
right.
The primaries, because that was the last.
I had gloves on. I don't think I had a mask. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't wear any. I didn't wear any protective equipment during the primary season at all. I was out there, kissing babies and shaking hands.
That's crazy.
During when that was being talked about in China and Italy. And then March 8th, we went to the International Women's Day deal. There was nobody masked up then either. Yeah. And literally the shutdown was March 22nd. And the whole world fell out in North Carolina. That was only 2 weeks apart. Now, I'll tell you what's really weird is that I've gone back and watched some of my reality TV shows that were happening right in early 2020. So I watched the New York real estate show, the New York the $1 million listing show that they have in New York, and they have those episodes from 2020. I went back and watched as people were going to become shut-ins and things, and people were wearing masks, and you couldn't hug each other and touch each other. All that started happening in New York in February, and late February and early March of 2020. And it's kind of surreal to go back and watch it now, 3 years later. It's very, very bizarre.
It is. It's like and that's probably why everyone is so out and about. The economy is so robust because people are like, I'm
like jailbreak.
Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of jailbreak, we're finished. So we will dance out. Let's get my technology that I'm so happy for about. Here we go. Let's see. Can we do this? Here we go. Bye, y'all. See you next week. Oh, hey, before we go, I got to lower the music. Next week's show is going to be really, really special. Next week's show is the second show of March. How the GOP became the party of Karens, sissies, and queens. That's going to be good. All right. See you next week. Bye.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for watching and watching our first show of March 2023. Y'all be safe out there. And we're coming up to spring break season. So be careful. Have a great week. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, y'all. See you next week.
Next up, thanks for watching our Coffee and Pan Dulce. Next up is Two Queers in a Truck. Stay tuned.